Ali and I are back again, Project Sofee. So, we can build an end-to-end experience, including the storage integration, API endpoints, and UI to basically be able to manage data. Some of the most generic projects that I've ever built, where you can just go in, add in countries or languages or local time zones or whatever you want to add in there, and it'll be able to manage that data for you and be able to process it and basically be able to display it. Gives you full management over what you're working with. And in the last time, a lot of people, have reached out to me. They're very interested in the capabilities, just building an API endpoint with .NET 6 and all that. And in the last time, we basically went in and we basically created a simple API endpoint, just a very plain, straightforward API endpoint. I'm just increasing the screen size here so people can see what I'm talking about. So just a simple API endpoint that says, hello, Mario, the princess is in another castle. Just a very simple thing that we're going to be using at some point in time to basically validate and verify that our endpoint is healthy without having to deal with any dependencies. Okay, so if that's the case here, then what we can do now, I can break that guy down by one because it's, yeah. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do now. Today, we're gonna be initializing another project. There's 4 different projects that I like to initialize when I start any new project. The first one of them is the main one, which is the API, but there's a couple of others that we really, really care about and we want to initialize as well. In order for any software to be written properly and to be considered as industrial, something that you can actually work with, you have to have tests. You have to have tests. Test-driven development is a very popular thing in the software industry today. Now it evolved into behavior-driven development and so many different other aspects. And we need to be able to initialize a test project for our API endpoint. So if I'm going to add functionality, I need to first be able to write tests that fail, like some of you might have seen in other videos. You're going to need to write failing tests first, and then get out of that failing test and go ahead and write an actual implementation. So here's how we're going to do this. We're going to be building an xUnit. There's so many different types of test frameworks that are out there. There's MS Test, there's NUnit, there's xUnit. There's all kinds of different frameworks that have been developed that can allow you to use a test framework to actually be able to test a particular functionality. We're going to go with xUnit because xUnit is much faster. It's very easy to use. You'll see xUnit being the de facto for building unit test in a lot of the actual official Microsoft projects. And that's what we're going to be using here. Okay, so I'm just gonna. I know that the sharing of the screen doesn't really allow me to. Let me go back here and let me see, Sally. Tell me if you can see. When I pop up a window in here, and I'm gonna go on Solution, right click, and then I'm gonna go and say Add, and then I say New Project, and then I'm gonna look for xUnit. Can you see this window here? That little window in front of me here?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so xUnit project. And here's the naming convention for this. So it's going to be the same project name, Sofee, and then core, and then API. That's the same project name, and then tests.unit, like this. So this is me basically writing a unit test, and it's going to be running on .NET 6. I couldn't agree more. This is the latest and greatest. Let's use that version. Here's all what we need to do, really. It's really sweet and simple. Let me slap in there that copyright notice at the top here. And all I want to do today is to basically be able to go and say delete me. So this is a file that I'm just putting in there. And this file's only responsibility is to tell me that my infrastructure is in good shape. What that basically means is that I want to know that my unit tests that are running are being detected and are being processed and actually executed properly. And I'm going to show you that in a second. So I'm going to go here and say should be true. That's just a very dummy test that we're writing that we are going to delete as soon as we start writing actual code. I'm just going to go here and say assert true is true, like this. Okay. Now, some people might say this is pointless. Why are you doing that, right? What's the point of building something like that? And my response to that is that in order for me to know that my project in a good stance and it's in a good state where I can actually run new code, I shouldn't have to worry when you're building infrastructure components. You're building these infrastructure components so the people that will be using your project don't have to worry about fixing issue in the infrastructure. So you're dedicating a special 10-pointer task just to build infrastructure components so people can rest assured that your system will be running the way it is supposed to. So here's the deal. I'm going to create a new branch here. I'm going to say users, Hassan Habib, infra, initialize, init, unit test project. Okay. And then I'm going to commit that real quick. So I'm just going to go here and say, before I do that, let's just make sure that all my projects have the latest and greatest packages. So I'm going to go on the solution level here, go to updates, include pre-release, and update everything. Update everything in your solution. Always keep your solution up to date, because what that basically means is that sometimes, the .NET team or whoever is supporting the libraries that you're working with, they find security issues, right? And they need to be patched. So we'll go and release, okay, they say, okay, you're using version, 1.0. We have now released 1.0.1, which takes care of an issue in the security in the security for this library. Okay, so this guy now is done. Now before I do that, let me verify that my test is actually detectable. It looks like it is detectable, right? And I can run this test in here. So I'm just gonna right click in here and run the test like this. And this should pass. There's also another way you can verify your tests are passing. I had this problem with a guy the other day. I think it was over the weekend. He didn't have .NET. He didn't have Visual Studio 2022. And we wanted to verify the tests are running. You can always use the command line to just go and say .NET test. .NET test is what the infrastructure is basically using to make sure that your system is running. See, just see, so fast like that, it found the test and it said, okay, it passed 1, test has passed, 0 has skipped, total is 1, failed is 0. Okay, so just a very simple command. You go to Package Manager. If you don't know where Package Manager is, you go to Tools, you go to NuGet Package Manager, and then you go to Package Manager. You can also use the command line. There's a special one in here. If you go to other windows, I think there is one here that's called Command Window. You can take that. There's so many different ways you can actually, achieve the same thing. Okay. Okay.
Is
So
that the same as terminal also?
can you repeat that, Sally?
Is that like you can also do the same thing at terminal? Like there is one for me in the Mac. There's something like terminal.
Yeah, that package manager is literally the exact same thing as the terminal. This is why I'm showing it, just so you don't have to rely on the UI all the time to do all the things. You can just simply just rely on the command line. It's gonna save you. Sometimes it gets a little weird, and maybe Visual Studio is having a hard time, or the instance itself is stuck somewhere. You can either restart your computer, turning it off and on again, or you can just run the command line and be done with the day. Okay, so I'm just going to call this infra, and then I'm going to say initialize unit test project. Okay, so that should create a PR, pull request. Let's go back to GitHub here real quick. And I'm going to go to this GitHub here real quick, and then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do two things here. I'm going to initialize the original infrastructure component with something called GitHub Actions, right? Git Actions. This is Sofee core. Here's the project right here. So initialize unit test. It says able to merge. There's no problem there. If we look at the changes, it's just these simple changes that we created. We created a new project, did a little bit of cleanup. That's all. So let's create this. Okay, so now this guy's created, right? But there's a little problem. There is nothing to run these tests, right? It's even telling me continuous integration has not been set up yet. So what should we do here when you're setting up a new project in GitHub? Here's what you can do. If you go to the original project, you'll see a thing in here called Actions, right? I'm gonna click on Actions. I'm gonna pick up .NET as a workflow. Now, since we're running on .NET 6, this guy's not gonna work, right? Because we're running on .NET 6, right? So I'm gonna need to include .NET 6 in here. So I'm gonna go find out, the latest version of .NET 6. This is really important. I'm gonna pick this up here, and I'm gonna go here and say, no, I wanna use this exact same version here, right? Some people say, then why don't we put it like 6.0.x? Point X meaning get the latest and greatest. The problem with this approach, and I've seen some people do that, The problem with this approach is that if they upgrade something new in the library and you haven't upgraded the version manually and something breaks, you will spin around yourself for a while trying to figure out why your build is not working in the pull request, well, even though it's working on your local machine. So I always say, nope, upgrade the version yourself. Do the version yourself. Now, the second thing in here, I'm going to say include pre-release equal true. Does that mean this is me saying I think it's include pre-release? Let me double check. Pre-release. I think that's where it is. Or use.net actually. It's called use .net. Setup.net core SDK. Yeah, see that guy here? And it has something here in the documentation says include pre-release. There it is. So I was right. Include pre-release. And in here, I'm going to say true. That basically means this version is not publicly, it's not globally available for production use yet, right? It's still in beta state, right? So even you see in here, it says RC meaning it's release candidate. That basically means that this is not ready yet to be actually finally available, right? So in here, I'm basically saying include pre-release. So this is the main target, the main branch, run on Ubuntu latest. I don't want it to run on Ubuntu latest. I want it to run on Windows 2019. Why is that? Because, you know, we're gonna need a SQL server, and the Ubuntu instance doesn't come in with a SQL with a SQL server, right? So this is runs on. Let's see if they have this option here. Run package. Yeah. Anyway, it's Windows 2019. I could check it up in here as well. If you look at any of our projects in here that have the same thing, if I go to Actions, and if I go to .NET, and if I want to go and see the details, actually you'll find it here in the workflow. So workflow.NET YAML, yeah, see Windows 2019. Why is that? Because the Windows agent comes in preset with SQL Server, and we're gonna need that to actually hit the server and come back and create full circle kind of thing. So that's it. I'm just gonna start a commit here. I'm gonna create a new branch, and this new branch I'm gonna say users Hassan Habib infra setup git actions, right? And in here, I'm going to say infra setup git actions. Okay. So here is propose a new file, creating a new file, creating the pull request. I'm going to merge this guy first before the other guy because I want this build to start, this guy here. So see now it's trying to check. Let's see here. If can I close it and reopen it? I wonder if that would make it. So I'm gonna say close pull request and then reopen pull request. I wonder if it will pick up the. There it is. Do you see it? So now it's running. Now it's running this check that we created, right? So now it's running this flow that will go and run the unit test for me and make sure that it actually can see my unit test projects. This step is super important because if you don't set up your project from the get-go in a way that allows your pipeline to be able to detect your tests, people are going to write code that might break your system and there's no way for you to detect it because your pipeline is not running tests, right? Therefore, you don't know whether the test is passing or not. The bad option here is for you to pull every single pull request. Like imagine people are opening now some 12, 13, 14 pull requests. You're gonna have to pull each and every one of them locally on your machine and run the test to find out whether the stuff they did is actually running on the test or not. Let's see. We have an error here. Let's see what that is. So it's saying error MS specify a project or solution file. The current working directory does not contain a project or a solution file. Okay, let's see what this problem is. This guy is failing because, let's see here. Let's fix these problems together while we're at it. So we didn't do anything different here as far as I remember. Actions.net, check all that. This is all good. Actions setup.net version. It looks almost identical here. Let's see. Setup.NET version 2. Let's see. It just might need to be, I wonder if it just needs to be kind of kicked in one more time. Let's look here and see code. You have Sofee core and you have the APIs, and then we're adding this unit test. Let me see if I can kick it off again, and maybe that'll make it kind of, let's see. So there's always an option here to kind of rerun all the jobs, right? So let's see if we can get this out of that. Found online an idle hosted runner in the current repository organization account that matches the required label. Perfect. This is basically saying, hey, there's an agent or a machine that has Windows 2019 running. So this is all good. Now this is basically saying setup.NET action.NET pre-release. Perfect. Now let's see if it can pick up, restore the dependencies and work with us. Come on. Go. Let's see. So it's basically welcome to .NET. It did all of this, and then it failed at the dependencies. Installed an ASP.NET HTTPS development certificate. Write your first file. Microsoft build. The current working directory does not contain a project or a solution file. That's funny because we do have a we do have a solution file in here, right? And I think the same thing, I wonder if it wants the solution file to be at the very top. Ah, see, it's looking for the solution file in here, but in our solution in here, we have this guy a little bit underneath, like one layer under, right? So we have this situation here. Here's what we can do to fix that. You know, I actually want the solution file to be at the very top, right? I want this solution file to be at the very top. You know, what we can do is that we can either pull that guy out or just, you know, kind of determine the solution, kind of move the solution file a little bit ahead. So let's see if we can do that. So let's go back to Visual Studio here. This is a good problem to have. Let's go to the folder view here. This is our folder view. And this is the inside of the project, right? And I want to move this guy to the outside in here to this level, like this. So now I have that solution outside. Okay, so if I have that solution outside like that, that basically means, let's see, and I also don't want, let's move these two folders out as well. It's freaking out because it's being used by, let's see, let me fix this on the Solution Explorer level first. I'll take this guy out like this. I'll close my, I'll close Visual Studio for a second, and then I'll come back to you in a second with, so let's see here. So I have this solution source. Give me a second there. Let's see. So what we want to do, and I know you can't see this yet, what I want to do is that to move in the projects and the solution itself to the very top, right? So I'm gonna go into let's see, the Sofee API. Here's the screen. You should be able to see like my Solution Explorer now.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take all of these here. Cut these out, go back to the top level, and just paste all of this in here. Okay, Now, before I move forward with that, since I'm already still on the same branch, you see, I just moved this guy up here, including now this folder is not needed anymore. I really don't need that folder, so I can throw that one away. Okay, so I have Sofee Core API, Sofee API test, get ignore. I have all of that good stuff in here. Let me open up that solution now and see if it can still detect the files that it has in here. Here's the solution. Yeah, it looks like it can see everything, right? So now I can go back here and say just, code rub, remove, move files up one level, basically, like this. I'm pushing all of this up there. Now, if I go back to my branch, everything should technically work. Let's go back in here. Initialize unit test project. Now let's see if this guy passes this time. Let's hope. Let's see. One of the most important things about, working with software is that you gotta need to be ready to think on your feet, right? You're gonna run into issues like these. Maybe you never ran into them before. Just read the messages and try to figure out a solution right away. But we'll see. Sometimes you're gonna run into some of these problems, and you just gotta do your best to kind of figure out the problem. Okay, let's see if it can now pick up the solution from this branch and be able to run the tests.
I was just looking at the Mac, so I don't have the full file called SLM. I know that when it's created, so on the folder, on the Mac, it shows, but in Visual Studio it doesn't show that.
It should be the node. It should be the node file at the very top. The purple. The purple. Yeah.
I open it. It's not the purple, but it's not ended with SLM solution. So it's just a folder, not .slm. It doesn't show.
Yeah, I wonder, since you're doing that, I wonder if you should try Visual Studio Mac 2022. I know this guy is out. Try to install this one. I think they changed a lot of things there. Yeah, try this one. They have a new version out there. I don't know if it's invite only or what, but there's definitely a new version out there, so it might work out.
Yeah, I will try. Also, I'll try the one that you mentioned, Parallel software. See if I can install that on my Mac.
Sounds good. Okay, I'm just waiting for this guy here. Yeah, just waiting for it to still pick up the changes. We have the logging. I have everything here. It's still intact. I'm gonna run the tests locally here as well, just to make sure it seems that's still able to detect everything, so we should be in good state. I just want to make sure that the build is able to kind of see all of that stuff. Still in the restore dependencies area. Taking a little bit of time, 1 minute, 30 seconds. Let's see here.
So this is you're doing it here only, for example, if you add initialize accepted test project, you do the same thing here or not?
No, it will be able to detect it automatically. Like next time, this is what we're gonna do in the next session. We'll be adding these acceptance tests projects. It'll just be one project, but the difference here is that we're gonna be able to kind of go and say, okay, we already set up the infrastructure for running the tests, so we don't have to do anything else. We just need to just push our code. Yeah, this is what we call like infrastructure DevOps work, where you basically want to set up your system to be able to kind of verify the status of the work that's happening or that's incoming work before it lets you merge in. It helps a lot, especially if you have a large stack of things. You want to be able to rely on DevOps to kind of take care of that. Anyway, this guy is taking a little bit longer. I'll give it 10 more seconds. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. It got scared. As soon as I said, I'm going to give you 10 more seconds, it got scared. It said, oh, he's coming after me. This guy doesn't give anyone a breather. Okay. Right. So here you go. So now, see, it can run my test now. See, passed one. So now if anybody, passes in a pull request, because this is open source, right? Anybody anywhere in the world can fork this branch, can fork this repository, and they can open a pull request against my pull request. If I determine, and this is something that I really like about, so let me merge this guy in first because that wraps up our session. But if I determine, like, let me show you some pull requests that are open today. You'll see some pull requests, GitHub did something really smart with their work. They basically went and said, if someone opens up a pull request in here, you're gonna have to first determine whether it's acceptable or not before we run the check. So this one I approved. So I said, okay, go ahead and run the check, right? While I'm at it, I need to tell Mehdi that you got conflicts. You got conflicts. Okay. So this is the beautiful thing because when you run an instance to run a build, it's time, it's compute time on the cloud, right? You want the people want to basically first determine or agree that the pull request conceptually is valid before you can go and hit approve and run. You know what I mean? So that's basically the point. Anyway, that basically wraps up our session today. Now we have unit test project, a very simple unit test. This delete me file is meant to be there just so we can verify that the infrastructure code that we have in actually is able to run the tests, right? So the next session for us will be, we will be able to do something very similar to that, but it's going to be the acceptance test, and maybe we will add the infrastructure test as well. So let me just, just for people that are watching us, just so you understand how many projects you need in a simple API. If you split them out properly, if you split the API properly, you'll be able to kind of build the stuff. I think we talked about this last time. So you have the API project, right? That's your what we call core API.
Yeah.
And then core API tests unit, right? And then core API tests acceptance, right? And then you have core API, right? Infra, right? Build, right? And then core API infra provision. Right. What is this guy? That's your core logic. That's your app, right? Main app. This is your tests. This is your end-to-end, right? End-to-end test, right? This is your build. This is your infrastructure. This is the stuff that we did right now, except in C#. So this is DevOps. And this here is your cloud infrastructure. So it's basically rolls out the API in the cloud. So this is, you couldn't ask for anything more in an API endpoint than this. This is all, like if someone is pulling our project in, the only thing that sometimes I add and sometimes I don't is something in here that I call integration test. And we will talk about that when our stack gets a little bit bigger and better. But for now, we don't really need integration test at this moment. How many of these have we finished? This is done, and this one is done. This is, this is in progress. This is the upcoming one, right? And the last one, so this is not done yet, not started, not started, not started. So once we finish these 3 projects, we can start actually doing, storage brokers, data migrations, create foundation services, create API endpoints, and all that kind of good stuff that we talked about before. All right, Sally, any questions?
No, I'm clear with
Comments,
that.
concerns?
Thank you.
Wonderful.
No, thank you
Okay,
so
and
much.
yeah, and for the people following us, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to drop a comment in the comment section, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you tomorrow. Take care.
See you.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.
You too. Bye.